Hey there, Gun Cranks fans. I'm one of the three stooges, Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat here. And before we get started with Gun Cranks, I just wanted to point out that, yes, we know things have changed since we recorded this episode of Gun Cranks. We talked to the first segment, we talk about Alec Baldwin and his criminal case. Well, shortly after we finished recording, things changed completely. His case was dismissed with prejudice, meaning he's done. It's over. They can't refile charges. So we discussed doing a new episode, or at least filling that segment in, and then events kind of overtook it. We had that little situation you might have heard of, the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. So we're going to let it stand as is. I still think the opinions offered, the observations made are valid, but we realize things have changed since then, and we hope you still will enjoy the episode. And if you don't want to hear about Alec Baldwin anymore, skip on to the middle segment. We talk about some of the great letters we get, and then we do, of course, do Here, Hold My Beer with some more really stupid people on YouTube. So anyway, just wanted to point that out, that things have changed since we recorded this, but we hope you still enjoy this great episode of The Gun Cranks. You know, I hate to side with Alec Baldwin.
I absolutely despise him.
Well, hey there, hi there, ho there. We're back. It's the Gun Cranks. Thanks for joining us. I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat, along with Roy Huntington, special assignments editor, and Tom
Wait.
Tom McHale is not here. You know where I think he is, Roy? I think he's leading a drag queen parade somewhere in deepest New York City, because frankly, I owe him after, 2 episodes ago, which I've still not watched.
We did kind of rip a new one on that one. And he was the one that started it. So
exactly.
Whatever you want to dish out, let's do it.
Yeah, I think he's dolled up, and his stage name is Cilantro. He's got a beehive hairdo with a, I'm sure he looks great in a sack dress. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a weird day. Tom bailed at the last second. Actually, he's got the vid, him and his whole family again. And I think he and I tied for the number of times we've gotten it, but hopefully they're all on the mend, but he had to bail on us. I realized I forgot to shave today, so I look rather scruffy. And Ashley is producing from Starbucks somewhere in the deepest wilds of South Carolina. It's going to be, it's a crazy time. So anyway, we've got a very topical thing we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Alec Baldwin. And frankly, in my opinion, he sounds like a real piece of work. But was he guilty of manslaughter? We'll find out later this week when the jury comes back, but we're going to talk about that because, hey, surprisingly, we actually have held guns and fired them. So we're going to talk about that right now. Well, welcome to our news and views segment, and there's lots of news going on, but the biggest in the gun world right now, at least in terms of the unwashed masses, is probably the Alec Baldwin trial, which is going on. And obviously we have to record this a day or two early, so not sure exactly current events, but as we're recording this, he is on trial, in the middle of the trial. And like I said in the opener that, Roy, I see a lot of pundits talking about guns, and it's pretty obvious they don't know a damn thing about firearms. So we thought we would add our voice to the noise, but hopefully we actually have fired these guns. So if you're one of the 2 people in the world who haven't seen media coverage of this, Alec Baldwin pulled what they're calling a prop gun, which, yes, technically it was a prop, but it was an actual gun, just like the one Roy is holding. And he pulled the trigger. Well, I'm sorry. Something happened, and the gun fired. It went through a monitor. It killed his director of photography and wounded, I'm not sure who it was. So they have found the armorer for the show guilty of manslaughter. She's currently doing prison time. And frankly, I believe rightfully so. But now Alec is on trial, and we're going to discuss it. And, the first thing you think is, well, he pulled the trigger, he's guilty, but it's a little more nuanced than that. So we're going to discuss it. But Roy, one of the big things that they keep arguing back and forth is he says he didn't pull the trigger. And personally, The FBI says that's not the case, and I find it really hard to believe. So you want to talk about the 1873 single action and how you make it go bang?
Sure, we won't dwell on it too much, but this is USFA Firearms 1873. It's an exact duplicate, basically, of what he used. It's exactly the same as a Colt. And if you'll notice, I'm going to do it up by the microphone. It'll click 4 times. See if you can hear it. Okay, there. If you heard it, what that is this: the first click is a safety notch, which is in the hammer, and the top of the trigger, which is where the sear is, will engage that safety notch. And so that's that first click, safety notch. The next one is the half cock, and that allows you to rotate the cylinder and load and unload the gun. The third click is the bolt locking, and then the final click is the full cock position. So as long as the gun is functioning correctly mechanically, the only way the hammer will fall is if you pull the trigger. If you push on the hammer, if you shake the gun or drop it, whatever, it'll stay cocked. The FBI said that the gun was functionally correct, that there was nothing wrong, like the sear wasn't worn, that you could push the hammer off. But the other thing that people forget about is the fact that, let's say the hammer slips from the full cock. Well, it gets caught either on the half cock or on the safety notch. More than likely, you see that? In other words, I'm dropping the hammer and it's not going all the way down. It's being caught by that safety notch. And so, right, wrong, or otherwise, the reality is, it's my opinion, based on the FBI's investigation, that the gun was mechanically correct, that the only way that gun could have fired from a full cock was if he pulled the trigger. So I think that's simple. I think, yes, he pulled the trigger.
Yep.
But now we need to talk about the rest.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, I've stated my opinion. I think he pulled the trigger. Before we get into the rest of it, though, don't you think the whole trigger thing's a distraction? And I'm not sure if that was something the prosecution brought up, the defense brought up. I think, if anything, it was probably the prosecution. Yeah, it kind of paints him in a little bit of a poor light. But then again, he probably doesn't remember. And frankly, if I was on the jury and he said, yeah, I pointed the gun at her and I pulled the trigger, that makes no difference whatsoever. It's the big question of what we're going to talk about now, which is, you're an actor. Somebody hands you a gun that he audibly declares, unequivocally says, cold gun, which is movie jargon for it's a safe gun, and Alec Baldwin points it and kills somebody. So is that manslaughter? What's your thoughts, Roy?
Well, he did say at his initial interview, I never pulled the trigger. And to me, that, of course, proves something very important, which is that he doesn't know anything about these guns.
Yeah.
See, and so he just thought that, well, I'll just say I didn't pull the trigger, and then it somehow magically fired. Well, obviously, that wasn't the case. I read in the news yesterday, he did say, well, I don't know, maybe I did pull the trigger.
Maybe.
But see, I agree with you then. What that means initially, when he first came out and he said, I didn't pull the trigger, I thought, that is bullshit.
Yeah.
And that sets the tone, like you say, if he said, I don't know what, it was a tragedy. They said it was a cold gun. I cocked the gun. I was responding to the director. Evidently they were having him do some test shots, like hold the gun here, hold the gun there, hold the gun here. And at some point, as part of what the scene was, he was to pull the trigger. And so if he just said that, we would all be saying, okay. Something I thought about too is that I have to differentiate between two things here. I've testified as a firearms expert in court, California Superior Court and other courts here in Missouri. And you have to distance yourself from whether you like or dislike the suspects or the plaintiff. I mean, it's very hard sometimes. And in this case, I absolutely despise him. He is such a liberal, anti-gun, arrogant, overbearing, all of those things. We'll check off every one of these boxes. But he was the guy that said, remember, if Trump gets elected, I'm leaving the country.
Part of the reason I'm here is that I know how to take a joke.
Yeah, well, I never saw that anyway.
Bye.
I know. We were all going like, please, please, please.
Yeah.
So I have to distance myself from that. Let's just look at the facts. What I did think, though, is what if this had been John Wayne,
Wow.
right? If it was John Wayne, I'll tell you right now,
You can call me a dirty son of a bitch.
I would have gone, oh man, what a sad accident to happen.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
I wouldn't have thought manslaughter. I wouldn't have thought, of course, there is something we need to point out here is that all of the hundreds of movies that John Wayne was in and all of the hundreds of guns that he fired, there was never an accident.
Yeah.
You know,
Zero fatality rate.
yeah. And
Yeah.
he was a shooter. He was a gun guy, But
Yeah.
anyway, so now that we've established that, I got to thinking is that let's use the exact same sort of a scenario, but change it in the sense that let's make this instead of Alec Baldwin had a gun pointing at the camera, let's say that his job, that he's a spy now, and that he's supposed to push a button and a car bomb goes off, right? We've all seen that 1,000 times in the movies, right? So this happens, it's all on film, there's a pregnant pause, and then you see that actually there was somebody in the car and he's on fire. And in the video, everyone runs out there and squirts it with, fire extinguishers and all that kind of stuff. And little did anyone know that the explosives prop guy was still in the car taking the safety switch off, right? Okay, that's what can happen. Now, is he guilty of manslaughter? And I don't think he is in that situation, I mean, if we take it another step, if he's in a scene with a stuntman and he's supposed to stab a stuntman with one of those prop knives, where the blade collapses in, and he does it, but the blade doesn't collapse in, and he stabs the guy and kills him, is he guilty of manslaughter? And I don't think anybody out here would say, yeah, he's guilty. I mean, we may say it's Alec Baldwin. Yeah, son of a bitch, he's guilty. Right. But I think objectively he's not. I mean, that's what I feel. Brent, you're on. Yeah.
Again, we're retired police officers. We've been in a lot of court. Roy's testifies as an expert. I have to side with him. Again, I think Alec Baldwin is vile for his political positions and all that. But again, he was relying, there's a concept in law called good faith. He took that gun in good faith and believed it to be empty. Now, should he have checked it? Should he know? Yeah, I totally agree. But I don't think any of those things rise to any level of negligence. So I think, I have to vote with Roy that he's probably not going to be convicted.
Your motion to dismiss with prejudice is granted.
I wouldn't be surprised by it. So, the bigger fail there is certainly Hannah Gutierrez, if I've said her name right. She's the prop master. And I just watched a show last night where they were talking to the guy that turned down the job, and they hired her. And basically he said on video, it was a train wreck waiting to happen. It was an accident waiting to happen. And they even showed some still photos from the production where guys are just waving guns around, pointing their gun. Hey, Roy, I need you to do, using that kind of handling. And they even showed a picture of the prop cart where all this stuff was kept. And it looks like my closet. It's just a jumble of crap. And the interviewer asked this guy, said, what do you take from that? And he goes, somebody that didn't know what they were doing, was overwhelmed, inexperienced, and it was an accident waiting to happen. So, it's a whole different issue of, is he liable for negligence and things like that as the producer? Well, the criminal trial's already said, no, he's not going to be criminally tried for that part of it. I think, there's going to be money paid out, a lot of money because of this. But in terms of, did he criminally intend to, or do something so reckless he was going to kill somebody? They've got a tall order there to prove that. So I guess we'll see.
I agree. And can they prove that, yes, he pulled the trigger of the gun and the gun had an ammunition and it killed the girl? Yes. I think Ashley brought up something which I've always wondered about. It's that, because I've done it before, is you set up a camera downrange, you point your gun next to the camera because it's an interesting view,
Right.
It's an interesting looking view, but there's nobody at the camera, I still activate the camera with a remote control And I don't understand why that couldn't have happened here, because, you can set a camera up and have a monitor over there, and the cameraman can watch and see exactly what the camera is seeing. And then she would say, well, I want you to move the gun a little more to the right there. That's how I want you to hold it. Okay, now pull the trigger. Okay, then if you kill a camera, that's fine.
Yeah.
I would like to address the fact that a lot of people say, well, had I been there, I would have checked that gun, right? Well, yes, and you probably would have, and I would have. Anytime anybody hands me a gun, I don't care where, how. I've been in court where the prosecutor comes up and hands me a gun and says, I want you to look at this gun. And the very first thing I do, while pointing the muzzle in a safe direction with my finger off the trigger, is I clear it, right?
Yep.
And if he handed me a gun and he said, okay, it's cold, I would say, thank you, I appreciate that, and then I would check it, right? The hitch here is, had he opened that cylinder and opened the loading gate and dumped the cartridges out in his hand, they may have looked live, because there are prop bullets, cartridges that they make that don't have holes drilled in the brass, that have what appears to be a firing pin. And those are for those times when they want to do still pictures, or they want to pan across a loaded gun belt, and things like that. So, I mean, he wouldn't have known, probably, you know? And so at that point, then what do? You stop and you say, hey, these look like loaded cartridges. The prop person says, no, they're not. They're inert. The gun's cold. Okay, now what? It's so.
And you point out there's a term for it. It's acceptance of deviance or something. Think about all the guns that are handled in TV and movie production every day, mainly in California, but all across the country, literally, probably, I'm guessing, thousands of times a day, and nothing happens. So everybody kind of, I think, accepts that if the whomever that's charged with this hands you a gun and said it's safe, gun guys would say, well, I'll probably check it. But then again, it would be not unusual to go, okay, they said it's safe. We've got a trained professional armorer, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure it's safe. So again, I hate to side with Alec Baldwin.
I know.
But
yeah, me too. Well, because you always have to weigh the leap of faith.
Mm-hmm.
When I carry a cocked and locked 1911 Colt, I'm taking a leap of faith, right? I've examined the safeties. I'm confident that they work. But you still have a cocked 1911 with it. If I carry a Glock, there's just a little sear surface in there holding the striker back.
Yeah.
And you have the trigger with the little flipper thing to prevent the trigger from being pulled unless it's held, but there's still just that little sear in there. And so I think we all take that leap of faith sometimes. And when Baldwin took that gun and pointed it, and I'm sure he's handled other guns. I mean, I think he's been in other Westerns. I'm sure he's fired prop guns, so he's probably done this 100 times. I don't know. And so he kind of was familiar and comfortable with the process, and he trusted the process, and he took that leap of faith. And so I think the big lesson here is there's two lessons, at least to me. Who's the star? Dwayne Johnson?
Dwayne Johnson, yeah.
Yeah. After this happened, he came out and he made it a point. He said, we do a lot of shooting in my movies sometimes, and there are no live weapons on the set, and there's no kind of ammunition or blanks on the set. Everything is put in post-production. So the fire, the gunshots, the bullets ricocheting, all that is post-production, digital magic. And I understand that and I respect that. But now to we real gun guys, I want to see that that's a real Colt single action in this guy's hand,
Yeah.
I want to hear the clink of the cartridges as he loads them. That done digitally would not be satisfying to me, and probably to most of our viewers and listeners. And so there is that balance. But then I go back to, if I was making that movie, I would not have somebody behind the camera and let them point a prop gun at them. I just wouldn't have done that because there's too many other options,
Well, and hiring a 24-year-old prop master with rather
experience.
interesting hair. That just
Yeah.
hair doesn't matter, but it does toward the overall. You want somebody that is like bookish and huge attention to detail and almost persnickety to get along with, because that person literally will prevent something like this. And
Well, my heart really goes out to her dad, Thel Reed. I don't know Thel real well, but I've chatted with him a few times, and he was a star in the gun world. Competition. His ability with a single action Colt was just like Jerry Michalik with a double action revolver. It was unbelievable. And he used to train the military. He trained police. And so then he segued into the movie business and became an armor prop master. And he's taught a lot of people, a lot of famous movie stars, gun handling for famous movies. And I'm sure he trained his daughter, right?
Yeah.
Except obviously, I think this was her first real job.
Yeah.
And which leads me to believe that, I'm guessing here, but I bet your dad put a good word in for her, which I would have done, you would have done, right? And then I'll bet you they were also on a budget because they didn't hire Thel, So I think they had a budget. It was like a B movie anyway or something, right?
Yeah.
So no, it was a terrible collision of accidents, and I'm just sad that there wasn't an adult in charge somewhere.
Exactly.
I've been on a movie set, and it's absolutely chaotic mess.
Yeah.
People yelling and moving around, and props
Things
constantly being moved
from second to second.
It's just constantly, and it's hard. I didn't really know who was in charge. There's a director, but everybody's yelling at everybody. Everybody's doing different things and stuff. And it's like, no, you needed an adult there. Somebody who was really in charge. So, all right. I don't know. Have we beat it to death?
I don't know if we beat it to death, but it's going to be interesting to see how it turns out. And we're very interested in your comments, especially if we've got a verdict by the time this airs. I don't know that we will, but it'll be close. And whether it's guilty or not guilty, we'd be interested in hearing what you folks think, because I don't think it's black and white either way, honestly.
No,
but
I think he is going to be found not guilty of the manslaughter thing.
That's where I'm going to hedge my bets. So.
But he's absolutely going to get screwed with the liability side of things because his name was on the contract. Be
interesting to see his how vocal and anti-gunner he is after this. And, I've got to point out the hypocrisy of him and many stars. They're vehemently anti-gun, but what's one of the first props they were always using in their movies? Guns. Okay. See, kids, this is what happens with guns. They kill people if you're not careful. So maybe you need to learn a little bit about them and understand them. So anyway, honestly, we could probably keep going all day, but I'm sure Ashley's losing her mind behind the producer screen saying, go on. So we're going to go on, and we're going to go on to the letters segment next. Well, as I say, we get letters, and we get comments. And I got to say, Roy, YouTube is blowing up for us. I don't know what we're doing right or somebody likes us, but you've said it's turned into a full-time job now, just checking comments.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I think people are so surprised in this age of digital
mayhem
and ignoring of people, and that the lack of personal service is almost legendary now. I can't remember the last time I actually got a call back after leaving a message at any kind of business or government entity. And I think it's kind of blows their minds when I respond to their comments, and we get, thousands of comments, and I try to go through it. I try to answer as many as I can. And I don't you can leave generic answers on YouTube. It's like, hey, thanks for tuning in. Gosh, thanks for posting, Well, we all know that that's a generic, post. So I always try to actually talk to the people, use their name, talk about what they commented about, and it's really satisfying because the response is huge. They all just say, I can't believe you guys took the time to actually, pay attention, listen to me. I subscribe. Thank you. The other thing is they like the fact that we're not full of hysterics and, you know, I know I don't wear tactical sunglasses, and look at the camera with deadly,
Yes.
seriousness and things that.
That's actually in my writer's guidelines for the magazine is I don't want to see any, here I am looking fabulous hero shots from my writers, okay?
I know.
Yeah.
I always hate those because I used to get them from the new guys, at least our seasoned guys. They never do it unless we ask them to. But it's the old. Oh, let me get my Colt we were using a minute ago. It's the old. Here's the gun writer pretending that he's shooting the gun. Oops, in the picture, and it's like, really, everybody knows you're not shooting the gun. Everybody knows you're just posing. Stop.
Exactly. So send us comments, and we'll keep Roy gainfully employed answering those. And okay, I've got some stuff here. Let's see. First from Guda Kumar. I'm part of the media team. I won't say. I would like a guest blogging opportunity for your. I would like to offer to write a guest blog post on expanded polystyrene. I keep looking at the wrong camera. That's the stuff we get, okay?
It's like, so, what?
Yeah. Here's one that we could probably turn into an entire episode. I've just received the August edition of your magazine. Reading Mas Ayub's article on the resurgence of the 45, I'm reminded of the old saying, a 9 might expand, but a 45 won't shrink. So he's right. Got a point, but if you look at statistics, the 9 and the 45 are kind of right there together now. So, I mean, I've always been a huge 45 proponent. I'm not poo-pooing the 45, but the 9 is a viable option. So if you carry a 45, good for you, more power to you. If you carry 9, good for you, more power to you. So, Roy, your thoughts on diameter?
Unfortunately, and I hate to even say this, but Sarah Brady was right when she said some people shouldn't own guns. And I don't really mean that as badly as that, because a lot of times there's a difference between stupidity and ignorance. But unfortunately, when you speak in ignorance, sometimes it sounds like you're being stupid, and so I think these people who make these sweeping comments like that about, the 1945, Jeff Cooper was guilty of it. 230 grain hardball always would stop someone 19 out of 20 times, which just isn't the case, And so I would say a better thing that I would have asked from you, and we do get letters like this where people say, hey, I have a 1911, it's a 9mm. My friends are telling me I need to get a 45. What do you think? And then you tell him what you just said. With modern ammunition, they're both essentially the same. And then
exactly
at that point, if he wants to fight with you, then you say, okay, we're done.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I got a couple letters. My most recent Insider column, I talked about buying a motorcycle and going for it. And people are amused by that. But WCK wrote me and said, I agree with you totally. As long as you have enough money not to be a burden to your family or friends, enjoy it. You worked for it. If you don't enjoy the fruit of your burden, then the owner of the local quote-unquote rent-a-bed to die alone sure as hell will. Your satisfaction will be that they will be forced to buy more land to look for the bigger house and 20-car garage. Not sure what he means by that. I also agree that your eyes are failing you. I mentioned that when I was riding my motorcycle, and it's a hot yellow and black motorcycle I got a matching full face helmet, and I've actually had 3 attractive ladies wave at me, and two of them were younger, and I jokingly said, had I lifted my visor, they would have been horrified to see Grandpa Walton inside. But
no, they were waving. Wait, they were waving because they were like, oh, it's so nice to see an old guy still
see
active.
The elderly people out on motorcycles. He said, those pretty girls were looking at the next guy over. Okay, fine. So, wow.
It's funny.
Okay. Congratulations on one of your finest Guns Insider articles ever. Oh, this is the July issue. You describe dealing with the important topic of distractions that our interests cause. At OCS, Officer Candidate School, we had classes on planning, and our instructors warned us about being too wed to a plan. They said be flexible so you can deal with the unforeseen obstructions that come up. Your article points that out too. In the corporate world, this is called management by walking around, or maybe it's like walking the dog. Best wishes and good humor, William Rogers. So I think the big takeaway there is I appreciate the nice comment, but it's the whole idea that when gun publications talk about tactics, you do this and then you move here and then you look left and then you look fabulous. Anybody that's been there, done that to any degree knows that, as they say, a plan goes to hell as soon as you make contact with the enemy. And it may not even be the enemy. As soon as you make contact with the physical world, plans don't go according to plans. So keep that in mind. So any thoughts, Roy?
As soon as you reach for the doorknob and the door's locked, it's
Yeah,
like, okay, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
they said
we're
it
ready.
was going to be open. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
Not so much.
I would like to say one thing, though, that honestly, the vast majority of letters we get, reader mails, comments on the YouTube channels are positive, appreciative. A lot of times people will add things that I didn't even think about or know about.
Yeah.
You know, hey, Roy, I saw this thing about this. You know, don't forget Smith & Wesson used to do this. And it's like, oh, you're right. I completely forgot about that. You know, and so I always like to have these kind of interactions. And they compliment on our content. They compliment photography and the writers and all that. And sometimes they have really, you know, critical, positive, you know, critiques sometimes too.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah, every once in a while though, you get those few there where we look and we go, what the hell?
I will write about polystyrene extrusion.
Okay.
Yeah, good for you. Here's another one for the August Insider column. All right, love your August 24 Guns Insider column, encouraging everyone to actually live life. It's all too easy to get comfortable. I can't talk. It's all too easy to get in a comfortable rut and one day wake up to find that's all you can do. So go for it while you can and let your descendants worry about that last credit card bill for the African safari. I was glad to see that you've taken up with a canary yellow motorcycle. Mind a few suggestions from a concerned reader? Riding a motorcycle is A, great fun, and B, a matter of odds. Try to stack them in your favor. Not so very different from what you did as a lawman. Get the best training you can, buy the best protective gear you can find, wear all your gear all the time, and operate on the assumption that every other driver on the road will try to kill you. And that was Jerry Kendrick. I thought that was a great letter. So,
well, that's the thing is when you get letters like that, it makes it all worthwhile, you know. It's like I realize that, actually they do read these things and actually they think about them and they want to engage. And I mean, that's what it's like. It's like the magazine is almost like a forum, except it's not digital.
Yeah.
You know, we still exchange this conversation back and forth. And so I like it.
I've been writing long enough to learn he's absolutely correct. They will try to kill you. And I remind myself of that every time I come to a cross street. So.
Well, yeah. Every time you look at the car next to you and there's some lady in there and she's talking on the phone, looking down, digging in her purse, you know, and it's like, really? I have this coat and this fragile fiberglass helmet between me and destiny.
Yeah, the helmet's just for the open casket. That's all that's going to do. So, you know, not to get off on an aside, but, you know, one thing I've learned, aside from they're going to kill you, is every person under the age of 30 is texting and driving all the freaking time. And it's amazing because I have a little procedure is when I'm coming up the intersection. I did this as a cop too. You look at the driver and then I look at the front wheel. And the reason being, I want to see what the driver's doing, thinking, acting. And as a cop, you do that to see somebody want to arrest or whatever. But then I look at the front wheel because if it starts doing this, you know, they can't move forward without that wheel moving. So now that I'm paying much more attention even to the folks driving, it's I would say 80% of drivers are doing this at stoplights, and that's insane. So
it is true. And I used to crack me up because I've ridden motorcycles my whole life, and people would say, well, remember, when you're on a motorcycle, you have to, you know, ride aggressively and take control of your part of the road. Yeah. It's like, well, you're an idiot, you know, because there's a $5,000 car and I'm going to be aggressive. You know, I used to ride bicycles, street bicycles, you know, and the same thing. the bicycle stupids. You're the ones you'd see running up the road in a pack.
Yeah.
And they would always say, well, you have to ride aggressively. It's like,
Okay.
yeah,
Good luck.
okay,
We'll see you at the funeral home.
It's
So, okay, the last one is a gun thing, and it's a long letter. He mentioned condolences for losing Duke Venturino and Mark Hampton. But one section, now on to the gun stuff. In January, I bought a new Springfield Armory Ronin 1911 10 millimeter, and I want to create a 200 grain hard cast load to reach 1,200 feet per second. I'm going to start with a 200 grain gas check from Montana Bullet Works. Does anybody have any suggestions on powder selection or load data to help point me in the right direction? I already carry Underwood's 180 Hornaday XTP load, which averages 1328 on the Cronny. Nice and zippy. I live in northern Idaho, so bears are a consideration. We even have the occasional grizzly wandering through, so hard casts would be useful. So I don't have any specific recipe formulas, but it sounds like he's on the right track. Other than that's going to be a noteworthy load going off in your hand.
Because I'm old and I'm an idiot. It was a 10 millimeter, right? Yeah. I think, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, get 2 or 3 or 4 good loading manuals.
Yeah.
And go to a couple of reputable websites that cover hand loading, not forums. Don't go to forums, and look at that. But you can also buy Buffalo Bore hard cast 10 millimeter loads and be done with it. But he's trying to do what people always do with a 10 millimeter. And I just wrote about this yesterday. And that is that they're trying to make it a 41 Magnum.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, and I think you push that envelope, where you're starting to bend guns and you're abusing them and you're abusing yourself and all that. If you need a Magnum, buy a Magnum. If he really feels this way, then go buy a 4-inch 29, 41, or 44 Magnum, or a heavy loaded 45 Colt. And then now you have the right tool to do the job that you think you need to do. To me, it's all about compromise. And I think the 10 millimeter fills an interesting void between 9 millimeter 45 ACP and 41 Magnum, 44 Magnum. So it's kind of like in there, but it's like when people try to push a 357, I want to have a 180 grain bullet at 1,600 feet per second. No, you know what? Why don't you just go buy a 44 Magnum?
Yeah. Yep. And the thing is, like you said, Buffalo Bullet hardcast. I get pictures all the time of large angry bears that the 10 millimeter factory round from them will take care of business. I've got a video, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to use it, but this bear comes charging out of the woods at some guys, and he drops it with his 10 millimeter, I think 2 shots. So it'll take care of business. I don't know if you have to get completely up in the stratosphere, but like Roy said, if you need a really big, powerful gun, go buy a really big, powerful gun.
Yeah. So. I think a 10 with a hardcast 180, like a slight flat point, maybe at about 1,100 feet per second, will penetrate as well as the 1,300 feet. It really will. It will shoot completely through a deer. It'll shoot 3 feet into a bear, and you'll be able to control it because chances are good if you're shooting at a bear, it's going to be, how do you turn this thing off?
Yeah.
And so the more controllable your recoil is, the more important that's going to be and stuff. So that's all. That's it. Just don't, dial it back a little bit.
Yeah. Well, good stuff. And like we keep saying, send us comments. You can reach me if you want to send email, editor@gunsmagazine.com. And or maybe I can talk Roy into answering them. So next up is our favorite segment here, Hold My Beer. Well, welcome to the Hold My Beer segment. And as we've explained before, this is named for the famous last words of a redneck, which is, oh, that ain't fireworks, or that isn't a powerful handgun. Here, hold my beer. Let me show you. And that's the last thing they do. So our producer, Ashley, has scoured the internet for a great gun video. And I got to admit, we actually saw this one beforehand to make sure the whole setup worked, but it's a good one. So Ashley, roll that tape.
I still hate him. Oh, what the hell? What the hell happened?
Oh, we've got a bonus here.
Oh, this isn't gonna. Oh,
yeah.
ouch!
I've seen
ouch,
that
ouch.
one.
Yeah, I meant to do that. Yeah.
Oh, and we've
this is
seen
a
this.
famous one. Watch
Yeah.
this guy. This is great.
Oh my
crash.
goodness, that is very powerful.
Oh, I am hurting my arm. Oh, we got a lot of them here. This is great. I can see where
Orthodontist
this is-
visit. That makes me hurt. There's that same gun.
Oh,
You would have thought he would have figured it out the first time, right?
it's a 600 is what he's
Yeah.
shooting, and it's this like Saudi Arabian gun club. Where do they go down and shoot that?
Yeah.
Oh my God! I hope we don't get yelled at for using the accent. Sorry,
We probably
we
will.
offended you. Yeah.
Oh well,
I know.
Now, the first one is the best, and I really wondered if that was like a YouTube setup. But when they pan back, there's nobody with like a bungee cord or anything.
Yeah.
Hello, hey, there it went. How about that? So,
Oh my God! And can you imagine? I don't remember if it was a semi-auto or something, but if it was a semi-auto and off it goes,
yeah.
and so now it's cycled and it hits the ground back there, bouncing around with a loaded chamber. The safety's off.
That could be a bad day.
I know. It's like, good Lord. All right.
And then
So
it slays me, and it's always young males. They're here. I can put the gun here, or I can hold it out here.
why was that a good idea?
Yeah, that was never, ever a good idea.
Oh, and you know what? You can also always tell the classic indicator of something that's going to go bad is when these people hold a long gun up or even a handgun, they're usually leaning way back at the same time.
Yes.
Have you ever noticed that?
Oh, absolutely.
So we're not accomplished shooters, because an accomplished shooter would be, into it. And so I'm leaning way back. I'm holding a single barrel, single shot, 12 gauge shotgun with a full choke.
And slug.
Yeah, and a slug up here in my face so I can look down the barrel when it goes off. I just love them. It gives the rest of us a bad name, though.
Yeah. Here, hold my beer. Oh, hey, you want me to drive you to the ER? Wow.
Anybody here have a first aid kit?
Exactly.
All right.
It's kind of like when I'm feeling down. I think I said this before. Is I like to go on YouTube and watch skateboarders injure themselves, and some of them, it looks like it might have been fatal, but I just giggle because
I can't do it. That when they run on the top of a bar and then they fall down their legs on either side of the bar. I can't walk for 2 days after you see one of those. It's like,
that's just cleansing the gene pool.
That's all there is to it.
It's the whole gun thing, though. It's like Roy said, it gives us a bad name. So kids, don't do that stuff.
Don't do that.
So wow. Well, Roy, we've come to our conclusion here on another episode of Gun Cranks. Just you and I, since Tom is off being the keynote speaker at the drag event, and I don't mean with cars, I mean with pantyhose. So, Tom, we love you. Get better soon. Hope the family's doing okay, and keep reaching for the stars. Okay, buddy? keep reaching for that rainbow. So, I still owe him so much more, Roy. But
I know. We've only scratched the surface here. Yeah. Actually, it was quite pleasant, though, with just the two of us. So we should make this a routine. Was that my outside voice just then? I'm sorry.
Wow. That, as they say, will leave a mark.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. Well, as for the third time, I'm going to say, leave us a comment. Reach out to me at editor@gunsmagazine.com and tell us what you think about Alec Baldwin or any of the letters or stupid people doing stupid stuff with a gun. So anyway, we'll adjourn, and hopefully Tom will be all fit as a fiddle and refreshed from his time with all the other drag queens. And we will have yet another episode of the world famous, the internet breaking Gun Cranks. See you later.
Talking guns and gear, they bring us joy. From ARs to Glocks, they know their stuff.